Okay, so this is a demo of Appio. I've got, first you log in to the network. It's going to be scanning the network. It's going to determine how much power consumption is being drawn, how many lights are on or off. It's got a floor plan here, so I can zoom in on the floor plan. It's got the MAC addresses of each device, whether it has a PIR sensor. Those are all kind of all incorporated into the map. And then in addition to that, we've got a node map here. The node map shows all of the devices that are on the network. You can click on any one. It will tell you what the IP address is of that spice box, and you can see what sensors, what EIPs are hooked up to it. So for example, this one has an ambient light sensor. You can just click on that device PIR sensor, and those are all color coded as well. Then I could also go to control devices, and I can set up scene groups, I can set up scenes, I can set up sequences and narratives. So I'm going to go to the scene group. Then along the left hand column, I've got all the scenes that I've created. So I'm going to go to shades, and I set up shades down, shades up, shades to 50%. I'm going to execute the shade up, and that's going to pull up the shade. I can also tie this into events. So, and I can also tie it into a time clock. I'm going to go shade to 50%, for example. It's going to draw the shade to 50%. I can also go to colors. I've got after hours blue here is what I've set up, or feeling blue. But you can set up any scenes and then create any sequences from those scenes. You can tie that into timed events, or you can tie it into narratives, such as I've done with the shades. So, so if I go to the narratives, I set up a narrative that says hot day, lower shades. So on the hot day, lower shades, it says, I'll go to edit here. It says if the temperature outside goes above 80 degrees, then do the shades down scene. So in the sequences, I set up a little shade demo, which basically it just shows if it had a timed event, we can do that. I'm on edit mode here. There we go. So it's going to run through that. I just didn't give it long enough. Oh, that's right, I had a delay on the if temperature goes above 80 degrees. So this here, I just set up a little demo where it's going up, down, 50%, and you can have this. You can have these on it, like I said, a timed event, or have it on a narrative of something happening. So just rolling through here, sensors. It's going to pick up all the sensors on the network. It's going to pick up all of the devices. When you pull up Appio, it'll auto scan the network, and it'll auto populate all the MAC addresses, IP addresses. If it's got a host name, what is that host name? If it's got an EIP on it, so this one has an ambient light sensor, this one has a 6-button wall controller, you can see what is physically connected to each one on this screen. And then if it's got a timer for a PIR sensor, for example, on it. Go to devices here. So devices, we have the spice boxes. You can look at the spice boxes. From here you can configure them, edit it. You can turn them on and off. Let's see, I'll go to these here, and you can, we name these in NuPack, and that name will transfer over to Appio. So you can edit, configure, edit, turn on and off. So you can, if you wanted to rename it, you could do that here. It already auto-populates the IP address and MAC address. And you can set up different configurations if you like. You could actually physically turn the lights on if you want from this screen as well. This is all the devices. So we've got the devices, we've got the wall buttons. We haven't set up the touchscreens yet on Appio, but we will be doing that shortly, where you can actually look at the functions from the touchscreens. So this tells you which 6-button wall switches are actually plugged into this network. Logs, then it's automatically doing the system log. So every time someone logs in, all that information is captured. It's also capturing the event. So every time a PIR sensor goes off, ambient light sensor, any power reporting, all of that gets logged into this log right here. It's going to take a little while for it to update. There we go. So all the EIPs, you got the PIR sensors, ambient light sensors, all of those are being recorded here. What is the timestamp and what the event was. But when you're first setting it up, you can set up the time clocks. You go into utility here. You can set up the time clock, the terminal. You can actually do a command line prompt here if you wanted to do some extra programming or configuring. That can be done in the timestamp here, or in the command line. Weather. This is where we tie in here. It'll auto-populate with where your location is. So Carlsbad, California, it's going to be Tuesday, September 29th. Tells you the temperature here, 60 degrees, and you can use this data to control the shades. You can also look at the node map here. So this has we've got the PIR, the switches on here. You can see again the PIR sensor, motion sensor. This is actually a power reporter, so it's reporting the power level of that port. And then settings. So when you first go in, you can set up users, you set up your campus. We have our campus's NuLEDs headquarters. You can set up the address, the contact information, etc., notifications. All of these can be done in the setup menu. And then access control. You can set up user policies so that you can set up users so that they can't actually change the policies, but only control the lights. And then we've got our network presence sensing sensors. This is if the system has a Bluetooth network presence sensing, which means you're kind of counting bodies in a space. All that can be done here, and I don't have one hooked up here, so it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, this is a demo of our touchscreen controlling lights and shades. So this is just a standard touchscreen that's going to have on, off, dim, presentation mode, and then a separate slider for the shades. I've got it set up so that when I hit the on button, the lights come on and the shade retracts. It can be a personal setting if you want. I'm going to go ahead and dim the lights because they're very bright. These two lights are both operating on that same spice box. Over there, the shade is plugged into a port that's also on the same network. So from the shade controllers, you can do a manual control here. You can do when we hit the off lights here at the end of the day, the lights go off and the shade comes down. Automatic setting. Lights on, shade up, and then we can also just control the shades independently with this slider here, and it's incremented into, I believe, 5 different increments. So let's say you just wanted to bring it up a little bit. There, that goes to halfway. Shades are going to go to halfway up. There we go. So we have actually a 25%, 50%, 75%, and all the way off on this particular touchscreen.